Hello and welcome to my channel. So I just filmed this entire video and realised I was calling Jane Eyre Anne throughout the entire thing. So this video is not gonna be like very coherent, I'm just warning you now. I'm just gonna rant about how much I love this book. The book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I read this in July and it has like left me shook for a solid 2 months. I've just been thinking about this on and off for so long and I just can't get it out of my head. So before this, I honestly thought nothing could top The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I thought that that would be my be-all end-all Bronte novel because it was beautiful. But then I picked up Jane Eyre. I love this book so much. I would recommend this book to anyone who wants to get into classics. I think it's way easier than any other book I've read, which is weird because the language in it isn't actually that different to pretty much every other classic book. A lot of classic books I would recommend to like new classic readers would be like The Picture of Dorian Gray or like Animal Farm because they've got more simplistic language. But this one is actually really easy to get through because it flows really well, the characters are very distinct, you don't have a big cast of characters, and the plotline is so engaging. Like, the plotline is beautiful, and if you have the chance to go into this book blind, I totally recommend it because it is so good. There's a plot twist in here, and if you know about the plot twist, I think it kind of ruins it. Like, if you've got the chance to, don't watch the TV series, don't watch the movie, just go in blind. I read this book at a point in my life where I just needed it, and so I feel like this book is gonna be like my favourite novel for a very long time. I'm just in love with it. I literally wrote up one of the quotes on my shower so that every day when I'm having a shower I can just look at it and be like, Jane knows what's up. If you are my friend, just know you're going to be getting a copy of this book at some point in your life. Oh, it goes without saying as well, this book was a 5-star. I'm going to move on to spoilers now, so if you don't want those, I would leave. Okay, so the book starts out and Jane's chillin'. She's with her aunt, she's with her cousins, they just chillin', they living their life, they're doing their thing. Jane's really been like rejected by her whole family. Like, the aunt really doesn't like her, the cousins really don't like her, and they all resent her because like the only reason she's living there is because the uncle made the aunt promise on his deathbed to like look after Jane, but nobody really wants her there and she's just in this really shitty situation. I love in the beginning section of the novel, like the little touches that Charlotte puts on Jane's character. I think it just makes her come so alive. Like a lot of books where you've got this big jump between like childhood and adulthood, you often have a complete disconnect between the two, and like because Jane's personality is really clear in the beginning and it carries on through right to the adulthood chapters, you really see like her as a character grow. So you see the little influences that Jane has throughout her life to turn her into the character that she is at the end of the novel. So like there's a little moment, Mr. Lloyd shows up and she has to learn to tell her story of how abused she is and how crappy her life is without too much emotion and just tell the facts and how it is. And it's like the first time she ever gets listened to and believed, and as a result of it she gets to go to Lowood School. Those little character growths where like she has to learn not to be so passionate and over the top. There's a beautiful moment as well with Bessie when Jane has to learn that there's a difference between parental love and this abuse that her aunt is giving her, and Bessie's showing her parental love in the way that she's trying to teach her and help her to grow, but Jane's just kind of not realised that for so long and just kind of demonised Bessie. But they have this little like reconnecting moment just before she goes off to Lowood School. It just warmed my heart how like, you know, she was just loved by Bessie, and like Bessie was like this one chick that was there for her. Lowood School was really interesting. There was a lot more discussion on religion, at least on the positive sides of religion, than there is in like the movie adaptations. In the movies they really focused on Mr. Brocklehurst and how much of a hypocrite he was, and they kind of show the bad sides of religion. But the book actually, they use Helen's character to kind of contrast that and show good Christian living. And I really I'm kind of sad that you lose that comparison, because I think it's a really compelling comparison. I find it interesting how it's completely ignored by the movie versions. It's not completely ignored, but it's turned in, they put more emphasis on the spirits and the other metaphors that are going through the novel, about fairies and things like that, which isn't really what the main focus is. They're there, but they're not, the main focus is more on religious moral. It's something that the Brontes actually did have a lot of knowledge on, because they were children of a pastor. They were the daughters of a pastor. Jane straight up asks, where is God? What is God? Do you see that in the movies? No. I found it kind of sad knowing that all of that was taken out. Also, Helen's character isn't so much a best friend like she's portrayed in the movies. She's more of a mentor character. She's older than Jane, and she teaches Jane how to be a good person, how to handle all these negative situations and be calm. I was bawling my eyes out when Helen died. I knew it was coming, but when it happened, it was just so... it was this line that made me fully break down. I'm very happy, Jane, and when you hear that I am dead, you must be sure not to grieve. There is nothing to grieve about. We all must die one day, and the illness which is removing me is not painful. It is gentle and gradual. My mind is at rest. I leave no one to regret me much. I have only a father, and he is lately married and will not miss me. By dying young I shall escape great sufferings. I had not qualities or talents to make my way in the world. I should have been continually at fault. I just loved Helen's perspective on humility and religion, and it was so beautiful to see that followed through in Jane's later life. It was never said that, oh, this is what Helen taught me, but you could see that's what Helen said to do, and she just does it, and it's just... I love when she's at Thornfield Hall, how she grows really quickly as well as a character. You see, at the beginning she thinks that the housekeeper is the lady of the house, and you just realise how small her world was. But at the same time, it works with her character, and it works with Mr. Rochester, because she's so naive. She's able to get into little fights with him, and I really loved the banter that went on between them. I thought that was brilliant. That's the one time I really liked Mr. Rochester as a character. Mr. Rochester's kind of a bit meh to me. I don't see why he's so romantic. He's just this old, ugly, snotty dude. I get he's loyal to Jane, that's kind of cool, but he's also not, because of the whole Blanche thing. That was kind of weird. The banter at night though is just, they're insulting each other, and it's just shade war, and Miss Fairfax is just sitting in the corner just oh my goodness, this is not polite.
She's not bright, she has no talents. What's your tale of woe? All governesses have a tale of woe. What's yours?
She's an invaluable...
Don't trouble yourself to give her a character. Were you waiting for your people on that lane? I mean for the imps and elves and little green men.
Sad truth is they are all gone. Your land is neither wild nor savage enough for them.
I also love the bit with Blanche, and there's this moment when she gets really snotty, and she thinks that Blanche has won the affections of Mr. Rochester, and that she was just being silly the entire time, that he never had a crush on her at all. And so she makes herself sit down and draw this really ugly picture of herself, and then she makes herself draw this really pretty picture of Blanche, and is whenever you think that Mr. Rochester likes you, take out these photos and be he could have Blanche, and you think that he's going after you. This is the sentence. Listen then, Jane Eyre, to your sentence tomorrow. Place the glass before you and draw in chalk your own picture, faithfully, without softening one defect, omit no harsh lines, smooth away no displeasing irregularity. Write under it, portrait of a governess, disconnected, poor, and plain. Whenever in future you should chance to fancy Mr. Rochester thinks well of you, take these 2 pictures out and compare them. Say, Mr. Rochester might probably win that noble lady's love if he chose to strive for it. Is it likely then that he would waste a serious thought on this indignant, insignificant plebeian? I really wasn't here for the whole like wife in the attic thing. I love Jane's reaction, like that was beautiful. There's that famous line that came out of Jane's reaction. I care for myself. The more solitary, the more friendless, the more unsustained I am, the more I will respect myself. I will keep the laws given by God, sanctioned by man. I will hold myself to the principles received by me when I was sane, and not mad as I am now. Laws and principles are not for the times when there is no temptation. They are for moments such as this, when body and soul rise in mutiny against their rigour. Stringent as they are, inviolate as they shall be, if at my individual convenience I might break them, what would be their worth? This is the quote I put on my shower, and I was like, I'm gonna read that every morning. I do like that quote though, because it just kind of reveals to you how far Jane has come from being this little chick who's like, how are you gonna stay out of hell? I'll keep in good health and not die, to I'm gonna keep the laws and principles given to me by God, sanctioned by man. like that complete switch. And I just like, it just shows how genius Charlotte is, because she shows you how that change came about. It's like that moment where you're like, all this development that you've got of Jane has built up, and you've finally got this moment where it's just like, yes, yeah, Jane, leave that asshole. So like that quote comes out of the bit where I just decided that I hated Mr. Rochester, because he's just kind of a dick to Jane. He's just kind of like,
my emotions, look after me.
I could bend you with my finger and my thumb. The mere reed you feel in my hands. But whatever I do with this cage, I cannot get at you.
I don't understand. I just straight up don't understand what everyone sees in Mr. Rochester. He's just such a bad romance person. The reason I love this novel so much is because Jane's just a badass. She's just out here living her life. Rochester, really? Like, he's rich. And that's kind of his only good quality. Oh, and he's loyal. But not really, because of the Blanche thing. I honestly, like, seriously, I don't get what's so great about Mr. Rochester. He's an old, ugly dude. Yeah, he's got some money, but he's also really salty. Like, the banter he has with Jane is like, that's the only, like, part I like about him. The rest of the time he's just insulting people. And he's just really insulting when he doesn't need to be. Like, he's just, like, shady to Mrs. Fairfax. But she can't say anything because she's the housekeeper. So then, after all the drama with the wife in the attic, Jane boosts her little ass out of the house. She's just like, I ain't here for this shit. I ain't here for you to have cheeky wives in the attic. I don't care if they're mentally unstable, but don't try and marry me when there's a chick up there. So she boosts. She's low-key homeless for a little while. The homeless bit is like another whole section that just had me bawling my eyes out. It's only like 5 pages, but like with every like sentence that Charlotte writes, how much it's stripping away at her dignity and her self-respect each time she goes in, and she's nervous, and like the way she gets more confident with begging is just really sad, because she's like, the reason she's getting more confident is because she loves herself a little less and she values herself a little less, and it's just, and then when you finally get to that point where she's literally dying and she's knocking on the door at St. John's house, and she's just begging to be let in, just someone let her in, and they turn her away. Oh my word. I had not, like, I had seen the movie a really long time before reading this. I'd forgotten about how this whole section played out, and so it was just such a stressful bit to read because I couldn't remember what happened. Like, she can't be killed off because the novel keeps going on. How is this gonna work out? But like after that, after this chick, this housekeeper, was just ready to let Jane die, straight up ready to let her die. She was just like, cool, whatever, you're out. Like, after she gets let in by St. John, she then forgives that lady who basically nearly let her die on her front doorstep. Like, honey. Like, she just walks into the kitchen and she's like, we all good? And the other lady's like, yeah, we're good. And that's it. And I'm like, no. Jane, don't let these people do this to you. But that's what I mean, like, that's why Jane's just such, like, she's just this perfect moral, like, character. She just knows when it's time to just let something go and when it's time to actually stand up and be like, bish no. And like, when she stands up for herself, she really thinks it out, and she does that because she's so passionate about things that she knows that if she just makes a snap decision, she'll get things wrong. She's like this moral compass for me, at least. Like, after reading it, I'm like, what would Jane do? Instead of what would Jesus do, I'm like, what would Jane do? But at the same time, she's also flawed as a character, and she messes up. Like, she shouldn't have stuck around at Mr. Rochester's house for ages and ages and ages. Like, she stuck around for like 2 days, I think, after the wife in the attic thing, and like fully just sat out there and listened to him whine and moan at her for like a couple hours before she was like, okay, bye. Like, she needs to be a bit faster with her decisions. But when she does make her decisions, she knows what's up. After Jane is homeless and St. John lets her in, like, I kind of am like, I should like St. John because he saved her life, but at the same time, he's kind of a dick. He just did her dirty with that whole, like, marry me thing. It just gave me flashbacks to when me and my dad watched Pride and Prejudice when I was little, and he gave me this massive lecture on how you shouldn't accept marriage proposals that are actually secretly business proposals. After like the Mr. Collins scene. And so like now whenever I think of St. John, I just think of Mr. Collins, and like I know that St. John has like redeeming qualities, so he's nothing like Mr. Collins, but I just keep picturing him as that and I just can't get over it. He did my girl a dirty and I can't get, nah, you can't do that. You can't do that. She was fine. She just wanted to be a missionary. She didn't want to be a wife. Going back to like the religious side though, like it's kind of like cool in some ways, because she's kind of like, Charlotte's done like different levels of like religion. She's done like Jane at the top, it being a badass bee and just knowing when to say things, knowing what's like appropriate, and like just always being there, being a good Christian lass, ditching her boy when he wants to run off with her and on like into the Indies or whatever. She's just a good Christian lass. Then we've got like St. John in the middle. He wants to be a good Christian boy, but he's a bit of a dick. I think he's very representative of a lot of Christians that we know today. He's trying, but he's just pushy in the wrong places. He's too focused on the wrong things. He doesn't really understand like the whole idea properly yet. But I think as well what Charlotte does is she shows that he's actually got room to grow, and she, I think, lets you know that as a character later on he probably will grow into someone more like Jane. He falls into like this really awkward middle ground where he wants to do the right thing, but because he's so stuck up he can't. And then you've got at the bottom Mr. Brocklehurst, who's just a straight up asshole. He uses religion to like better himself financially, and like uses people so that, yeah, he treats the girls at Lowood School really poorly, makes them dress plainly, but then he'll dress his children up in like frills and lace and like, so like, yeah, I really like that, like how Charlotte did the whole three. She did like a spectrum. I find the book really weird how it ends, because it's really all of a sudden, like I was getting to the end and there was like 20 pages left and I was like, we're still just chilling at St. John's, like when are we gonna boost on over to Mr. Rochester and sort this shit out? And then just all of a sudden, like, she just wakes up one day and she's like, I'm gonna go see Mr. Rochester. And you're like, Okay, that's fine, I guess. And so she boosts over to Mr. Rochester's, and then in like 2 days they're like poof, engaged. And it's just like I feel like that's the most random section of the novel. I get why it happened really quickly because it didn't need to be drawn out, because the point is that now that Jane's had her time apart and Rochester's has had his time, and Rochester has had his time apart, that Rochester's kind of been brought down to earth and Jane's been raised up, and so now they're on equal standing, and so there's no point in just sitting around and letting romance play out for no reason. Like, they're on equal standing now, and so the characters can come together and instantly get married or whatever you want. But it was just, because it was so quick, it was just kind of tacky. Also, I really hated that Jane cured his blindness somehow. I thought that was just like random, like it's a metaphor, I guess, but it's kind of as useful as Augustus Waters' metaphor. I'm reading Wuthering Heights at the moment, and I'm really like, I'm hoping that it's going to be as good as Jane Eyre. This novel is my grandma's favourite Bronte novel of all time. I'm really excited because there's an essay in the back of it by Virginia Woolf. I love Virginia Woolf. I love A Room of One's Own. I'm just really excited to finish it so that I can read this like little essay or a review. I don't know what it is, if it's an essay or a review, but yeah, I'm just super excited for this book. So I'll give you my updates on Goodreads if you want to follow me there. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you in another video. Adieu.